So again, today we're continuing down the path of wisdom, the wisdom path, right? We've talked about hewing the stones of our characters, we fixed the rudders of our mouth, and last week we put our hands to the plow. Today we're going to look at something that both Proverbs and Jesus both have a lot to talk about. And we're going to talk about your treasure. Okay? We're going to talk about your money, your wallet, your treasure, however you want to say it. Okay? So in week 1, we said that God is the ocean and we are the boat. Right? I am the boat, you're the boat, but God is the ocean. So if your character is the hull of the boat, and your tongue is the rudder that controls the direction of the boat, and your work is the engine that makes the boat go, then your wealth is the cargo that's in the boat with you. It is the weight you carry on board the boat. And if you load a boat wrong, or if you carry the wrong kind of cargo, your boat will sink. There's a reason why Jesus talks about money more than heaven or hell combined. He knew that our cargo is directly tied to our hearts and to our souls. Jesus tells us this in Matthew. He said, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." And literally just a few verses later, Matthew 6:24, he gives us this warning, because no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both money and God. You will hate one and love the other, or love one and despise the other. And when we talked about that during the Sermon on the Mount, I gave you that analogy. If you have multiple bosses, at some point your allegiance is going to be tested. Who are you going to do? You can't work for them both 100%. You're going to hate one and you're going to love the other. And it's the same with God and money. Because at the end of the day, the truth is money makes a terrible master. But here's the thing, money makes a wonderful servant. And here's the reality of the matter. Our culture gives us two completely broken blueprints to follow on how to handle our cargo. It tells us we can do one of two things. We can either be a hoarder or we can be a consumer. And neither one of them is the perfect answer. So let's look at the hoarder first. The hoarder lives his life with a closed fist. They think money is for ultimate security. If I just get enough in the 401k, if I just build a big enough wall, the storms of life will not be able to hurt me. And Proverbs diagnose this exact mindset. Listen to what Proverbs says. It says, "The wealth of the rich is their fortified city. They imagine it as a wall too high to scale." Did you catch that word? They imagine it. The security of wealth is an illusion. The hoarder isolates themselves behind a wall of cash. They think it will save them from the sickness, from the heartbreak, or from the storm that they see coming. Proverbs gives us another terrifying warning about the hoarder, about becoming this person. When it says, "Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf." And if that's one extreme where we don't let nothing go, we live our hands so tight and closed around the things that we have that we can't even let God touch it. The other extreme is the consumer. The consumer lives their lives like a leaky bucket. That's just a fun image, because all of us hate a leaky bucket. I don't put water in a bucket so that it leaks out. I put water in a bucket so that it holds the water. It's like having a leaky toilet. Nobody wants that. They think money is for status and immediate pleasure. It's my money and I want it now. Proverbs warns against this as well, and warns and tells us where it leads. Whoever loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and olive oil will never be rich. The consumer spends everything they have just to look impressive on the outside. Proverbs says this about the consumer's bucket. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. That's a fun word to say, gulp. And because they gulp it all down, because they have the newest car, they have the newest and nicest clothes, they have to borrow money to keep up an image that's eventually going to perish anyways. Which leads us to one of the heaviest warnings that Proverbs gives us. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. The consumer thinks their spending makes them free and powerful, but it's actually putting them in chains. The hoarder trusts the cargo instead of the ocean. The consumer drinks the cargo until the boat runs dry and there's no more fuel. They both lack chokmah. They both lack skill. Now, I can remember a time before I had a working understanding of money. Now, I'm not great with it. I do a lot better than I used to, okay? And thankfully, during that time, there wasn't Amazon. Unfortunately, there was still eBay, but there was no Amazon, okay? And I had, and I still have, this weird fascination with the mid-ages, with dragons and with swords and with knights and valor and honor. I mean, even as far as going to katanas and samurais and swords, like swords. I had an obsession with swords. It was an expensive obsession, okay? They drew me in. I just loved them. I was fascinated by them. So much to the point that at one point I had purchased and displayed at least 8 different swords somewhere in my house that we were living. I had to get rid of them because little people like, he's not so little anymore, but JJ came along and he could grab them swords off the wall, and that wasn't very safe, so we got rid of them, okay? But I had at least 8 different swords. I had the king's sword from Lord of the Rings. I had the gladiator sword from Gladiator. I had the witch king from the Lord of the Rings. I had the swords. I was the man. I had the collection on the wall. Look at me go. But I was a consumer. I was so driven by my fascination that consuming our money wasn't an issue, even at the expense of my marriage, at the expense of our bills, or the ability, I did not have the ability to slow down. I was gulping it down. I was gulping the cargo down. And our boat was taking on water. But eventually got a hold of my wallet. Carol and I went through Financial Peace University, and I ended up taking all of those swords and selling every single one of them at a yard sale, because that's one of the steps. Get rid of junk. But I had to learn how to patch my leaky bucket as a consumer. Am I still a consumer? Yes. Do I like to spend money? Yes. I'm the free spirit spender, as Financial Peace would call it. Okay? But here's the question. If we aren't supposed to be hoarders, and we aren't supposed to be consumers, what does the wise path actually look like? That's a great question, guys. I'm so glad you asked me this morning. Proverbs introduces us to a radical paradox. It tells us to stop clinging to the cargo and to live open-handed. Listen to this mind-bending math. This is what Proverbs tells us. This is like God math, right? One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, and comes to poverty. What? The person that gives gets more, and the person that holds on gets less and finds poor. What? God, that don't even make sense. My 401 is killing it. The world's math says your closed fist, you close your fist and you protect what you have. That's what the world tells us. God's math says, no, open your hands and watch it multiply. And here at New Day Church, we have a specific blueprint for this. We literally already said this. We have a statement that defines our culture, and you hear me say it almost every week when I get up here to do announcements. It says this. This is exactly how it goes. Here at New Day Church, we want you to participate with what God is doing with your time, talents, and treasures. We believe that your giving, the giving of your time, talents, and treasures, should be prayerful, planned, proportionate, willing, and cheerful. Ironically, all of those things are found both in the New Testament and the teachings of Paul, as well as the Proverbs. What? And this isn't just a church slogan. This is Hakma. There's a reason why we want you to do it this way. These are the skills of managing the cargo that God has given you, whether it's your time, whether it's your talent, or whether it's your treasures. So let's look at the biblical definition and the imagery behind every one of these words. All 6 words: participate, prayerful, planned, proportionate, willing, and cheerful. Okay? So first is participate. We don't want you to just be an audience member on the path. We want you to be a builder in the quarry. We want you to be using that hammer and chisel. We don't want to be a church of consumers. We want to be a church of contributors. We want to participate. Here's what Proverbs says: honor the Lord with your wealth. With the first fruits of all your crops, then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. I don't have crops and I don't have vats, so what is he talking about? Okay? In Hebrew, the word honor is kabad, maybe. Sounds good enough. That's the literal translation. K-A-B-A-D, kabad. Okay? It literally means to be heavy or weighty. When you participate with your time, talents, and treasures, you're taking the heavy cargo of your life and letting God use it to build his kingdom. You're allowing him to use the weight by honoring him with it. The second word, prayerful. Prayerful. This is the foundation of the entire house. Proverbs 9 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Before we open our wallets, we have to go back to the engine room. We ask the master, God, this is your boat. This is your cargo. Where do you want me to steer it? Second Corinthians, Paul tells us in the church, to his second letter to the church at Corinth, he says this: we give what we have decided in our hearts to give. Here's the thing. You can't decide what to give in your heart unless you're speaking to the one who has the ultimate plan. I'm going to be real with you. I am not great at this step. I'm not. I love living open-handed. I love being generous. I'm not great at being persistent in praying and asking God what to do with what I have. but I'll give you the shirt off my back. Your car breaks down, I got an extra one. I got a motorcycle, you can have my van. You want the motorcycle? Fine. I need tires, you can fix that for me, and then I'll take the bike back when you're done. That's not how it works. Anyways, the third word is planned. Proverbs says this: the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Here's one of our stones again, the diligent. Right? You remember the ant from last week? The ant doesn't wait until winter to figure out how to survive. It plans. Again, Paul to the church at Corinth says this: on the first day of every week, each of you should set aside a sum of money. That sounds like a plan. That sounds like a plan. On the first day of every week, that's a plan. Giving shouldn't be fanatic. It shouldn't be last minute, and it shouldn't be an emotional reaction to something. It should not be tipping God with whatever's left in your wallet from the day before when you went out and had a night on the night on the town, whatever it's called. It's not tipping God what's left. No, it's making a plan. It's on the first day of the week setting a sum of money aside. Open hand requires a diligent plan. I call this, and so does the FPU world, a word a spender like me hates. I think it's a curse word. It's a budget. I can look at my budget. I don't, because then it slaps me in the face because I see how much I've spent. But here's the thing. This is what financial peace teaches us. If you don't tell your money where to go with a plan, with a budget, you will wonder where your money went. If you don't tell your money where to go, you're going to wonder where it all went. How many of you have ever experienced that? I know I have. I know I have. My son's raising his hand because he knows. He's just like his daddy. The fourth word is proportionate. Proportionate. Okay? Proverbs 3 tells us to give of our first fruits, not the leftovers, but the very first and best portion, proportion. Paul writes this to the church at Corinth: for if the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable, according to what one has, not according to what one does not have. God doesn't look at the size of the check. He looks at the size of the sacrifice. Proportionate giving means the widow with the 2 coins. The widow with the 2 coins. That event rings just as loud in heaven as the person who has all the money in the world and gives millions of dollars to the church. Her sacrifice was so immense. Her heart was so set on, I know God is going to do something with this. I'm giving it because I feel like he's called me to. Now we're getting to the 2 fun words, willing and cheerful. The 5th word is willing. In the Old Testament, when Moses built the tabernacle, okay, I just read about all of this. God did not tax the Israelites. He did not tax the Israelites. What did he do? He specifically asked for a free will offering. He wanted the willing offering of the Israelites to build his tabernacle. He only wanted material from people whose heart was moved to give to him. But a free will offering isn't just about giving without complaining. It's giving with expectation. It's opening your hand because you are expecting God to do something amazing with the thing that you're giving. I am sure that the people that have donated to helping sponsor people to come to this marriage conference are expecting God to do something with that. You give because you want to see the master builder construct something amazing, to build a foundation that the world will never destroy. Proverbs says it this way: a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Because a willing heart isn't paying a bill to a debt collector. A willing heart is investing in a miracle. God doesn't want your money if he doesn't have your heart. If your fist is closed, he's not going to pry it open. But if you're open with it and willing, get ready to watch what he builds. The last word is cheerful. Proverbs tells us the generous will themselves be blessed, for they share their food with the poor. Paul would go on to say in the New Testament, for each of you should give what you have decided in your hearts to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. The word here in Greek for cheerful is where we get. I'm just going to go to where we get a word because I don't know how to say it. Hilaros. It's the word hilarious in English. It's where we get the word hilarious. God loves a hilarious giver. That's a completely different image than what I've ever thought. Most people you see giving, they're like, oh, it's so heavy. Yeah. Not, check this out. Here you go, God. I'm out of breath. That was too much. Someone who, the image here is like someone whose joy over what God is going to do is so big that they can't help but open their hand to see what God's going to build. And to them it's hilarious. This doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this? It doesn't matter. He's telling me to, and I trust him. When we give cheerfully, because cheerful giving breaks the power of money over our life. When you think it's funny because God's asking you to give something that you're like, I don't even know where I'm going to get it. And you do it, and you do it obediently, and you do it cheerfully, and you do it willingly, watch out. When you live open-handed, things multiply. It's really weird. It doesn't make sense in this world. Because we're not relying on the math of the world, we're relying on the math of God's kingdom. Now listen to me very carefully. I hate talking about money. This is not my favorite thing to talk about. For two reasons specifically. One reason is that I'm not exactly the best example to follow when it comes to money. I'm not. Another reason is that when somebody like me gets up here and starts talking about money, we immediately hear things like, all the church ever wants is our money. And you guys tune out and you check out. This is the second time in coming up on 7 years that I've talked about money and being participating, prayerful, planned, proportionate, willing, and cheerful. Second time. I don't like doing it. To which, if you're the type of person that says, all the church ever wants is your money, I say this: no, we really don't want it. Not if that's your heart behind your money. No. But we don't talk about money because we want something from you. That's not why we talk about money. That's not why I'm talking about money this morning. We talk about money because we want something for you. We want you to have stuff. We don't want your stuff to have you. We want you to be free from the anxiety of holding on to stuff so tight that you can't let it go. We want you to be free from the exhaustion that comes from chasing after everything to be the person that the consumer tries to be. We don't want that for your life. And when we look at Jesus, we don't see a closed fist in any way, shape, or form. The gospel is the ultimate story of proportionate, willing, and cheerful generosity from a king. Paul tells us this, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake, he became poor, so that you, through his poverty, might be rich. Jesus emptied his wallet. Jesus left the riches of his kingdom. And let me tell you this, when he was nailed to that cross, his hands were wide open. His fists were not closed in anger. His hands were opened in grace, and he held nothing back from you. So this week, as we look at our cargo, as we look at our time, as we look at our talents, as we look at our treasures, that God has put in our boats, in your boat, in my boat, let's stop clinging to it like somehow the cargo is the thing that's going to save us. Let's stop letting our stuff have us. Let's open our hands. Let's participate in what God is doing. And let's let us be a people that trust the King who opened his hands and who gave it all for us. Let's be those people this week.